What's going on, YouTubers? It's Fred, Birdland BS, with an instant reaction to my first training camp experience at the Under Armour training facility in Owings Mills. I gotta say, this place was state of the art. And I only got to see the outside. If you haven't had a chance to get to one of these free practices, hop in somebody's car, because the way this thing works is anybody that has a pass to get to these training camp facilities, it's not a numbers game. As many people can pile in a car, can get there, and the entry is free. There's no charge for parking. Literally, the only money you're going to spend is if you want to get a water, if you want to get a hot dog, if you want to get some food, whatever it is that you may want to get. But outside of that, it's a free experience. And I've been to McDaniel College, and when they used to have it open to the public up there, totally different. This place, I'm telling you, when they call it a castle, it's a castle. It's unbelievable. It's no wonder that when they bring free agents into this place, they tend to not leave, and they end up signing a deal here because this place, and I only got to see the outside of it. It's amazing. And part of the experience today, unfortunately, Scott wasn't able to join me today with family obligations, which we all understand. But one guy I did run into, for you YouTubers out there, Ingraven. If you don't know him, follow him at IngravenVids. This guy posts Ravens content all day, all long. He will interact with you. Any questions that you may have on anything when it involves the Ravens, this guy will get back to you. We got a chance to sit down and do a video interview, and I want to share that with you guys and just kind of share our experience from today.
All right, so joining us now, Mr. YouTube, Mr. Social Media for that matter, Team Keep It Clean, Mr. Ingraven. Welcome to the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you having me on the podcast, man. It means a lot. Big
yeah,
time.
Appreciate you being on such short notice, and glad to have you on while you're still here in Baltimore, which has been quite the experience for you since you've gotten here.
Yeah,
why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your story and what happened?
Well, found out the Ravens were having the open practice on scheduled on the 21st of July. So I was debating for a while whether I should come up or not. So I said, you know what, let me just go. So bought the plane ticket, booked the hotel, got the rental car, that stuff, right, and got here Saturday morning and found out a few hours after I got here Saturday morning that it had got canceled. So that was pretty rough.
Yeah,
and it kind of ruined the weekend. Because I was like, the main reason that I came up here was for that. Well, really the only reason. But so I tweeted about it that I was bummed about it, that I flew all the way up from Florida to Baltimore, and then the practice got canceled. And the Ravens, they responded to the tweet, and they asked me, was I still going to be in town today? Or was I still going to be in town on the following Sunday? And I said, yeah, I am. So then they DM'd me, and they ended up hooking me up with training camp passes. So they definitely turned the weekend around, turned the entire situation around, and made the trip worthwhile. And it was great today, man.
That's awesome, man. Kudos to the Ravens for looking out for a true fan, man, coming up from Florida to watch a team practice. Not many people will travel with the team to see a team practice or training camp. That just speaks to you as a fan. That speaks to, I think, the excitement kind of around this team. I think this was, I've talked about it in my podcast in the past, probably one of the most anticipated training camps that I can ever really remember for the Ravens. So was this your first experience at the castle at Owings Mills?
This was my very first time there. I had never been there before. The only times I've ever seen the Ravens have been at the Ravens Stadium and when they come to Miami to play the Dolphins. But other than that, this was my first time, first practice, first training camp.
Nice.
It was cool, man. It was cool.
What was your impressions of the castle and the overall facilities and everything?
Very neat, very well designed, very in order. It was nice. It was really nice. Everything that and it was cool seeing everything that they show, like on when they put up highlights from training camp or something. It was nice because we actually got to see where those highlights get recorded at.
Right.
It was just nice seeing where they do the post conferences at, well, not the press conferences there, excuse me. And it was just nice seeing all of that in person. Everything that I'm used to seeing on BaltimoreRavens.com, just to see that live and up close, it was super cool, man. Super
yeah,
cool.
I totally agree. This was my first experience at Owings Mills. I had been to Westminster in the past when they had been there before. Much nicer facilities, much different setup. For those that have never been there, there's multiple fields. As you and I kind of experienced, the one field right up front seemed to be special teams and defense, and then the field towards the back was where the offense was set up. We got a chance to sit. We parked ourselves on the offensive field. We were all there kind of obviously to see Joe, to see Lamar, and some of the new offensive weapons and how the wide receiver core was going to do. What were your biggest takeaways? Anything that impressed you with what you saw?
I think Flacco, he looked great. He looked on point. And I know it was just training camp, so it's not a regular defense coming at you, anything like that.
Right.
But I'd say about 98% of his passes were on point. There were just two that looked to be a little bit off. One of them was to Jaleel Scott, I believe. It just looked like they weren't on the same page, whether it was Jaleel Scott running the route the wrong way or Flacco just missed timing the throw. But for the most part, Flacco looked sharp. For Lamar Jackson, he is fast. That guy, he is crazy fast. And the
as
thing
advertised.
About it, yes, the thing about it is he wasn't even running full speed, and this guy took off like that. He's quick, and RG3 was on point too. The thing with Lamar that I did see too, it's lightning outside. That's not good. The thing that I did see with Lamar Jackson, it wasn't with too many passes. It was maybe with about 2 or 3 of them. He put him a little too high.
Yeah.
But again, he is a rookie. He's gonna have time to learn and time to fix that. So that's fine, and that's what practice is for. So,
right, and I totally agree. I totally agree. I think for me, one of the most impressive things with Flacco that I saw, and I don't know what your take is on it, but in the years past, he's been hurt. He's had some injuries, especially last year and whatnot. Now, I don't expect him to have game-changing type of speed or anything, but his mobility in the pocket was much better than it's been in the past. I mean, there were a few plays where he kind of got outside of the huddle a little bit, outside of the pocket a little bit, used his feet a little bit, and was able to extend plays. I mean, that goes a big way, especially when your offensive line breaks down. That's the difference in either taking a sack, throwing the ball away. Did you see anything with his mobility that you liked? Or?
Yeah, his mobility did look good, and then of course he had that play where he took off for about 15 to 20 yards. So he was moving around back there because there were enough times where the defense was getting back there, the pass rush was getting back there, and he had no choice but to move. So he had to put his mobility on display because the offensive line couldn't hold the defensive line down for parts of the practice. But Flacco looked good. He didn't make any crazy decisions. He didn't make any bad decisions. I did see a few checkdowns here and there, but he was on point. He was really on point, and it just is making me more and more excited for this. Whoa, I don't know if you saw that. It's making me more and more excited for the season. But yeah, this should be a lot of fun, man. I can't wait for Buffalo, man.
Yeah, no, you and me both. Now, you, like I said earlier, you kind of sat on the defensive side for a little while. I didn't get a chance to sit on that side of the field and watch anything kind of go down there. What was your impressions of the defense? Did you see anything that stood out to you on that side of the ball?
DeShon Elliott.
Yeah.
DeShon Elliott. That guy, I forgot exactly who the tight end was, but there was a play where Flacco threw the ball to the tight end and DeShon Elliott whacked him. He laid him out. I think that was probably one of my favorite plays of the training camp today.
Yeah.
He just, wow, that guy. I've heard a lot about him. I don't really watch college much, so I don't know how he was in Texas, but I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I know a lot of people were surprised that we got him in the 5th round, that he was still there in the 5th round.
Right.
So at first, when I first heard that, because I heard it from a lot of Ravens fans, so I thought, okay, maybe they're just because they might be drinking purple Kool-Aid or whatever. But seeing him today, I know it's just one practice, but at the same time, just seeing him today and the fact that he gave all of that effort in practice, man, I'm excited for him. I know he won't get too much playing time, especially as a starter, because we got Weddle and Jefferson, which I'm not complaining about.
Right.
But he's gonna be great depth, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Weddle and you mentioned Jefferson. He's got 2 seasoned veterans that he can kind of learn behind, take a year or 2 to kind of develop, because I saw the exact same plays. There were actually 2 plays that he made. Both of them were kind of across the middle. He couldn't help himself but to lay the guy out. Now, Harbaugh did pull him aside and kind of talk to him a little bit. I don't know if you saw that or not. But
yeah, I heard about that. And I remember on the second one where he hit the guy on the second one, he kind of put his hands up like, oh, I didn't mean to do it.
Right,
so,
exactly.
That was funny, man.
So he's definitely a rookie to look out for. Speaking of rookies, one guy that I was kind of high on when the Ravens picked him, and I thought he was a value pick later on in the draft. But somebody that I honestly left camp today with some question marks around was new wide receiver Jordan Lasley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lasley, when they put him at kick return, he had the drops. When they put him at receiver, he had a couple of drops. And more so toward the early training camp. But as time went on, he was getting more comfortable and was starting to catch everything. But, yeah, that if right now I had to come up with a list of the top 6 receivers on the team, he wouldn't be one of them.
I agree.
Just based off of today alone.
Right.
Because I feel like Crabtree, Snead, John Brown, Chris Moore, and Tim White, and then and Jaleel Scott.
Right.
I feel like those guys, based off of today alone, they are definitely ahead of him, because today definitely wasn't a good day for him. Not at all.
No, it definitely wasn't a good day for Lasley. Like you said, he muffed a few kick returns, dropped a couple passes. I mean, you could see the guy's got big play ability, and but his hands are just a big question mark. And Lord knows we've got enough of those on these teams, and we've been dealing with it for long enough that we don't need another guy who's got question marks with his hands. But one guy that on the opposite end of that, and you mentioned him, that I left really impressed with was Tim White. I mean, everything that came his way, he caught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the guy that I came with, he's a big Tim White fan. So he's been rooting for him since last year. And earlier this offseason, I've been saying Tim White's not going to make the team. You got just too many wide receivers. Last year didn't help him at all, being put on injury reserve with a thumb injury. So I didn't think he was going to make the team. But based off of today alone, he literally caught everything. He did not have one drop. Not at kick return, he didn't have one drop at wide receiver. But the thing that I liked the most about him, after practice was over, they were doing the autograph signings and everything. And they had a couple players like Max Williams came over to the jug machine, Janorian Grant, and Mark Andrews. But Tim White, he was over there throwing the ball and whatever. But then after everybody left, he had signed a few autographs, took pictures with and whatever. But he was like, hey, these are the last 3 footballs I'm signing because I got to get back to work. And this was way after practice had finished. So this guy, it just shows what we saw on the field today from him literally catching everything and not having not one drop. What we saw on the field, it showed how he got there by the work that he put in after everybody finished practice and after all the lights were off, the cameras were off and everything. This guy was still putting in work. So I love that about him, man. I love that.
Yeah, that's good information. That's unfortunately I had to leave there at the tail end of practice, so I didn't get to stay for autographs. I didn't get to see some of that stuff. So that's good to know. Just to see that kind of drive and that want-to from somebody. That's what this team needs. They need people that are going to come in and work. And at the wide receiver position, Lord knows we need that upgrade there. And I think what he can bring, not just as a wide receiver, but as a returner. I mean, he's an electric guy. He's got a lot of speed. He's a shifty kind of guy. I'm excited. I think that if he doesn't make this roster, we're sorely going to regret that down the road.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. Because he can do the returns. He can play wide receiver. He's flexible, so that adds value to him. And
absolutely.
And that Ravens definitely appreciate value because they can be a little cheap on offense, but I'm sure that with him being able to come in on offense and make some plays at wide receiver, or even come in on special teams, punt return, do kick return, whatever, the more that he can do, the better for his chances to make the team.
Agreed. Totally agree. Another guy that I wanted to see, went to a small college, got him late in the draft. Very tall, lanky guy, Jaleel Scott. This guy, I mean, his arms are ridiculously long. I don't know if you noticed this thing, but his arms, I mean, it's down to his kneecaps. Really lanky. The only thing I saw with him, I think he needs some development in his route running, but he did have good hands, and I think he needs to kind of get off the corners a little bit better. But what was your take on Jaleel Scott? Did you see anything from him?
With him, I do like that he caught everything. I don't recall not one drop from him.
Right.
He looked good. Yeah, and with the route running, it's funny because with his route running, I don't know if it's ever going to be a time where it can actually look good, only because he's just so tall. And with him being that size, it's going to be really harder for us to notice how good he is at running routes. Because if you're 6 foot, I think 6'5", I believe. Right. So for you to stop on the go or just be able to catch somebody with a little quick move, and it's going to be harder for him with his body. But if he can master that, then that's going to make him so dangerous, man. And man, that would be such a nice weapon to have. 6'5", man.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I could just imagine.
You got Clarence Moore with some hands.
Yeah. Oh, throwback. Oh, you went back. That was a sad story. Clarence Moore, Tommy Streeter.
Yeah.
That's why I'm kind of scared for him, because of Ravens history, not just with receivers, period, because I'm scared for him for that, but with taller receivers. That's not really their specialty. So hope that we can start turning things around the better, really at just receiver, period.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I want to talk a little bit about the core group of the wide receivers, obviously that being Michael Crabtree, John Brown, and Willie Snead. Now, they didn't participate in the entire practice. They were there for probably the first half of the practice, and then they kind of disappeared. I don't even know where they went. I don't know what the deal was with that. But for me, this was my first look in person at Michael Crabtree, and what I left today was – this is a guy that, talk about route running, he's about as smooth as they come. His hands are about as soft as butter. I mean, this guy is the real deal at wide receiver. I'm excited for Michael Crabtree. What about you?
Yeah, his route running was perfect. You could tell that he's been doing this for a long time. Same with Snead too, but both of them, their route running was crisp. They made it look easy. They made it look super easy. And the thing with those two, that would benefit the Ravens is that they have their route running down pat. They've been doing this for a while, especially Crabtree. But then you got these younger guys that they can show that to too. So it's like a win-win for Baltimore, man.
Right. No, I completely agree. I think the only guy that I really didn't see much out of was John Brown, and I don't know if they maybe limited him because there was an injury concern there or what was going on. Just didn't really see a whole lot. He came out in warm-ups, took a couple passes and just like one-on-one type stuff, but that was all I really saw from him. But overall, I think I was pretty happy with the wide receiver team. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Even though he got off to a slow start, things definitely picked up for him with Rashad Perriman. Because I felt for the guy, because the first pass I saw thrown to him, he dropped it.
And the crowd didn't let him live that one down.
Yeah, man. But as practice went on, he stopped dropping. There was even a family in front of me. They were counting every single pass that he caught, and they were like, "Oh man, he caught 2 in a row now. Oh, he caught 3 in a row now." So they were like, it was almost like a game was being played with. When is Rashad Perriman gonna drop it? Because but it just shows the frustrations that a lot of Ravens fans have had with Rashad Perriman, which is understandable. Because it's been just about a train wreck with him. A little short of a train wreck with Rashad Perriman's career, but he is at a crossroads right now where it's time. If he doesn't make this team, I don't know, man. I think somebody may take a fly on him for a cheap deal just because of that. I think that speed saves him. That speed and that size. So they may give him a little shot for a low vet minimum contract. And if he doesn't work out, then they just let him go. But this could be it for the Ravens. Even with them giving him that $650,000 roster bonus a few days ago. Right. I know this. He's at a very important, critical time in his career.
it's a numbers game for the Ravens at this point. I mean, we've talked about it. We've got 4 pretty much guarantees in Crabtree, Snead, Brown, and Moore. Those 4s are absolute guarantees. You know, for me today, I solidified Tim White. I mean, I know it was only one practice, but for me, he's got to make this team. And then you've got 2 draft picks from this year in Lasley and Jaleel Scott. You know, do one of them make the team? Do one of them go to the practice squad? Do both of them make the team? And at that point, I have Perryman under all of them. And it's going to be tough because if you put Perryman on the active roster, then you're pulling from a position somewhere else, and then you leave that position kind of thin. So it'll be interesting to see what happens through training camp, through the 5 preseason games with him. And he's got a small window. He's got to really impress in this window. So I agree with you 100%.
Right, and with that small window, he's just got to find a way to do more. And it has to come from special teams. He has to be able to do something on special teams and just shine. And even that's going to be hard because that's where Tim White comes into play. Because with Tim White, he can be a receiver. He can be a special teamer. With Brashad Perryman, he's already struggled at receiver, so he's down low on the depth chart with that. But even if he can be a special teamer, with his struggles that he's had at wide receiver, then that doesn't really help him. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
I agree. One other thing that I really wanted to look at training camp is I wanted to take a look at the offensive line. I think I've been kind of an advocate for the offensive line. I think that this could be one of the best offensive lines that we have, but there's a lot of question marks around it too. There's some guys that are going to be moved around and kind of played in different positions that they either haven't played before or haven't played in a while. We've got obviously a big rookie that's going to be playing right tackle, which we saw him today, Orlando Brown, starting with the first string at right tackle. That's a big boy, man. I knew he was a big guy, but good Lord, seeing him in person, he's a big boy.
Yeah, he's huge, man. He is huge.
Yeah.
So
anything on the offensive line that kind of jumped out to you?
Not really. Well, from what I saw, when they did have the defense out there, it looked like the defense was getting back there a lot. Whether it was Flacco back there, Lamar Jackson had to run. The defense was getting back there. The pass rush was getting back there a lot. Now with the offensive line, I'm excited to see them when they're all together. And I know Marshall Yonder, they're keeping him out. They got him on the PUP list because he had the surgery in January. So he's still recovering from that, and I'm sure they want to take it safe. And they know Marshall Yonder, he's a veteran, so he'll know and he'll come in and know exactly what he needs to do. But I am excited for them to just all be together because, yeah, I've been saying the same thing too. I feel like this could be one of the best offensive lines that the Ravens ever had. And what makes me even more excited for them is last year. Last year we lost Yonder. Last year we lost Lewis. Last year, even though he wasn't a starter, we lost Saragusa. But mainly Yonder and Lewis because those guys were guys who were starters. So with us losing them, the offensive line, they still did their thing last year. They still gelled. They were still pretty good, especially down the stretch. So with them having been that good without a Yonder, without an Alex Lewis, if we can get those 2 back healthy, Orlando Brown can come in and be solid. Still got Stanley, of course, and when we figure out who's going to play center, I'm super excited for the offensive line. And offensive line can literally make or break your offense, your team, really.
Right.
And I'm hoping they make them, man.
Well, I'm going to ask you because I don't know, but one of the biggest, I guess, red flags that I saw from the offensive line today was no Ronnie Stanley. Did you hear anything about Ronnie Stanley and why he wasn't out of practice today?
I didn't hear why. I believe they did say he was injured, but nothing serious though. But they did keep him out. So I know they because they actually had quite a few guys because I didn't see any Eric Weddle, no Tony Jefferson.
Right.
Saw Suggs for a little bit, but yeah, just to get back to the offensive line, I believe they did hold him out today, but I know it wasn't anything serious.
Okay. Well, you had mentioned Alex Lewis, and I think one of the questions that have been kind of floating around prior to camp was, is Alex Lewis going to go back to guard, and Skura is going to play center, or is Skura going to go guard, and Lewis is going to go to center? And that's what we actually saw today, is we saw Lewis line up at center, and we saw Skura over at left guard. I thought Lewis did a pretty good job of running the line. I didn't see too many people jumping off sides and things of that nature. So, considering we had kind of a makeshift line put together for the first string today. You know, they had Illuminora lined up at left tackle. They had, like you said, no Yonda, no Stanley, and had Skura and Lewis. I thought they did pretty well.
Yeah, they did. Alex Lewis especially, he looked comfortable playing the center position, and I feel like that would be such a tough switch for an offensive lineman, because they have to call the plays at the offensive line, and they have to be involved on every single offensive play. So they have to hike the ball to the quarterback on every single play. And he looked good. He looked comfortable. So if his flexibility can, that just makes him that much more, like we talked about earlier, valuable. If you can do more than one, play more than one position, you're that much more valuable to the team.
Cool. Yeah, I like I said, totally agree with you. I'll only keep you a couple more minutes because I know you got to go. I know you got a lot of things you probably want to do here in Baltimore, but just got a couple of things that I want to run by you on defense that I saw.
Okay.
You had already kind of mentioned one of my big highlights was DeShon Elliott, the big plays that he had made. I saw those same things. Couple of things. I saw one good thing and one bad thing. So the good thing, we'll start there. Kamale Correa. I don't know if you paid attention to him, but they actually moved him back to his more comfortable position where he played in college, which is on the outside. And I saw him get a little bit of pressure, like you had mentioned, on Flacco and RG3 and some of these guys. Did you see anything from Correa that kind of impressed you? Good, bad, ugly?
Just impressions with a pass rush. With him, sometimes it can be a little frustrating when Ravens draft a guy, but then change him. They fix what's not broken. The guy was drafted because he was a good pass rusher. Let's put him at middle linebacker. It's like, okay, why would you do that? But with Correa, I'm glad that he's getting switched back to, or that he is switched back to outside linebacker, so he can show why they drafted him so high in the second round. And he showed flashes of that today. I'm just wondering how much of an opportunity he'll get. If he keeps on doing what he did today, then he'll get plenty of opportunities. I do want to see him. I didn't see him today in pass coverage, because that's what I would want to see. Because I did see some other outside linebackers in pass coverage, but I want to see him in pass coverage too.
Yeah, and I think one of the guys that I really think is going to help this team in pass coverage, and we unfortunately didn't get a chance to see him today, was the rookie out of UCLA, Kenny Young. He was a guy that they drafted specifically for that need. You know, as good as Mosley is, he's not the best in coverage, and I think Kenny Young just adds that to it. And anything that we can get out of Correa in that pass coverage just helps. I think for me, and I don't know what your take is on this, I think Correa is just kind of playing for his job at this point. They realized that keeping him inside just wasn't working. And let's put him back to the outside where his natural position is, and that's where he's going to have to shine. If he doesn't shine during training camp, I don't think he makes his team.
No, I completely agree. He was definitely one of my people that I considered more on the out than the in with the Ravens, especially because last year they drafted a Tyus Bowser, they drafted a Tim Williams, and those guys are pass rushers. So with Correa, he just really has to go out there and kill it. This preseason is so big for him. And like you mentioned earlier, this is probably one of the most anticipated training camps, seasons that the Ravens have had in a long time, because it's so many different positions, there's so many just battles, there's so many uncertainty, there's so many just question marks for now and for the future at so many different positions. So this season is big time, man.
Absolutely. One of the bigger players that I was kind of excited about seeing on the defensive side of the ball, but left there kind of disappointed actually today. And again, it could be just, it's the first day in pads and, don't get too up in arms, but Marlon Humphreys, not his best practice today. I saw him beat on a few occasions by wide receivers. He had the one that was pass interference in the end zone. Was it just me, or were we both seeing the same thing with him?
Yeah, he did look a little rusty, and it could be hey, it's just the first day. But yeah, he did get beat. I think he got beat by Ackland, and Ackland is an undrafted wide receiver, undrafted free agent wide receiver. Even though you can't really put talent on when somebody was drafted or not. But Marlon, he did get beat today. Wasn't his best day in the world, but it's like for days like today, it almost makes you like really hold on to what he did last year in the regular season. So you know that Marlon is a lot better than that. And I'm sure he'll be fine. So I'm not worried about Marlon Humphrey at all.
Okay. And then just to wrap it up on one positive note, Jimmy Smith in full pads, ready to go. How impressed were you with Jimmy Smith, seeing him out there today?
Just the fact that he's been out there, just the fact that he recovered extremely fast. I know Tony Jefferson joked around about it, how fast Jimmy Smith recovered. It's great. Jimmy Smith is so key to this defense. It's crazy how important Jimmy Smith is to this defense because, and it's happened the past couple of years. When he goes down, the defense just falls apart almost.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah. So seeing him healthy this early this year is good, and I just hope that this year they do it differently than they did last year. And I hope if he's healthy, which he seems to be, I hope he's 100% healthy. Because I know last year he wasn't 100% healthy, and they had him on a sort of a rotation it would be Jimmy Smith and Brandon Carr, then Brandon Carr, Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith. They would rotate them out because Jimmy Smith was still hurt. And that obviously only worked for so long when his Achilles ended up tearing. And he was out for the rest of the season. But hopefully this year he's completely healthy, and hopefully we have him for the entire season. Because we haven't got to say that since 2015.
Yeah, it's been a couple years. Knock on wood, man. I tell you, this time of year, I'm holding my breath every time I get an update from the Ravens. I don't even want to look at it because I'm afraid it's going to be
scary.
Somebody got hurt or something happened and somebody's going on the injured reserve list. I do not want to hear that. So far, so good. We no big injuries, nothing to really too concerning or nothing big to worry about. But I think overall, great first day, great experience today at training camp. It was a pleasure meeting you today. You and I have kind of we've been in contact back and forth now for the past couple months. I appreciate it. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and a little bit about your page and what you do and where they can find you?
Well, my YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everything is IngravenVids, all one word, INGRAVENVIDS. Big Ravens fan. Anytime any Ravens news drops, I go do a YouTube video about it with other NFL news too. But the channel is about 95% Ravens. We talk a lot of Ravens on there. So if somebody is a Ravens fan, they want to stop by, subscribe, feel more than free to. If you want to follow on Twitter, feel more than free to. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it a lot. Nice meeting you today too. Today was such a great day. Appreciate you having me on this podcast, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you joining. Look, this guy is a man of the people. If you've got a question about the Ravens and you want his opinion, you better believe he will make a video about it. He will definitely answer your question or concern. Ingraven, man, appreciate it. Very nice meeting you today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.